Discover how a single misguided message transformed an incredible millionaire and a desperate woman. Daniel stared at the flickering lights of the conference room, the tension in the air thick. As he sat at the head of the table surrounded by a sea of expensive suits, the expectations felt unbearable more than the pressurized deals that once energized him. From the dusty roads of his small Midwestern town to the pulsing heart of Silicon Valley, he had clawed his way to a fortune, but now, whispers of dissent from peers wrapped around him like a noose. Why waste your genius on them? They hissed, their voices laced with doubts, each word a brick weighing down his resolve. The allure of profit shimmered like a siren-esque call, promising prestige and validation, but something deeper tugged at his conscience. Honoring his father's memory, the man who taught him that true strength lay in resilience, in giving back, Daniel felt split in two. As he contemplated the potential mentorship initiative he had casually mentioned in passing, unease settled in his stomach. What if it failed? What if he was just another wealthy man using those below him as a stepping stone to further his own reputation? He ran a hand through his hair, contemplating the layers of judgment he had pulled upon himself. Just focus on your company, Daniel. That's what matters, an inner voice scolded, but the other echoed the cries of the families that needed support. He hated feeling like an imposter playing a role that others expected him to embody. Each option stacked against the other felt insurmountable. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. Emily sat in her tiny kitchen, feeling the weight of the bills looming overhead like storm clouds. Two kids, both demanding and innocent, played in the other room, blissfully unaware of the struggles that consumed her. Laid off last month, she had spun into chaos, each day a new challenge, rehearsing the same mantra of resilience. Why couldn't she shake this itch in her soul? The thought of the mentorship that Daniel had planned circled in her mind like a predator, gnawing at her pride. His smiling, polished face intruded on her worries. How could someone so far removed from her reality understand? Hadn't she seen too many false promises in her life? The bitter aftertaste lingered, wrapping her tight, as she teetered between resignation and the prospect of hope. Need was a flickering flame within her, yet accepting help felt like admitting defeat, an idea she hadn't found the courage to confront. Both Daniel and Emily stood at the precipice of their choices, one too consumed with his quest for validation, the other paralyzed by the fear of vulnerability. The pressure crackled like electricity, igniting their insecurities as they faced challenges that were about to collide in ways neither could anticipate, the clock ticking down toward an unforeseen moment that promised to blur their previously defined paths. Daniel's gaze shifted from the conference room's polished walls to the digital window flashing his notifications. The news cycle looped endlessly, but he felt disconnected as each alert tugged at his focus. What mattered more than metrics and market strategies? His father's constant reminders echoed louder, almost drowning out the relentless hum of business jargon. Each time a new message pinged, the question pressed harder: could he use his position to make a genuine difference instead of just padding his pockets? In the stillness of his thoughts, a flicker of inspiration began to take shape. He leaned forward, edging from the heaviness of the boardroom table. What if the mentorship wasn't just a side project? He challenged himself, deciding then that this was more than just a potential initiative to placate his critics. Taking a deep breath, he allowed determination to replace doubt. It could be a guiding light for others. Yet, beneath that resolve, a nagging fear persisted. Who was he to lead? Meanwhile, Emily fumbled through the day's bills, tracing the numbers with a mix of annoyance and despair. Each digit felt like a weight, anchoring her deeper into a sea of uncertainty. Something in her demanded she break free. What's a little help if it can lead to something better? She muttered, clenching her fists. As she watched her children play, laughter cutting through the heavy air, a sense of purpose mingled with anxiety. She'd always been the provider, the stronghold, but now she needed to accept that strength also lay in vulnerability. The thought of Daniel's mentorship lingered in her mind, reshaping itself into something she could envision, a chance to shine in the dark woods of hardship. But the self-doubt of her qualifications lingered. How could I ever measure up? She was just another face in the crowd, was she not? Later that evening, Daniel found himself standing outside a local community center, the painted walls a stark contrast to the steel and glass heights he was accustomed to. People were filing in, mothers juggling children, and adults exchanging stories of familiar struggles. A quiet tension wrapped around him as he prepared to join them. This wasn't just another networking event. This was a calculated risk that could steer his life in an unexpected direction. He pressed his palms together, unsure whether to step in or retreat to the comfort of his world. Emily arrived shortly after, her heart racing as she approached the building. The community center smelled of lasagna and laughter, an odd combination she desperately craved. She hesitated just outside the entrance, her resolve wavering at the thought of mingling beneath the fluorescent lights with people who seemed so put together, despite their own challenges. "You can't turn back now," she whispered, pressing her hand against the door. This was about more than her fears, it was about her children, her future. Both Daniel and Emily stood at the threshold of vulnerability, their lives demanding a collision that promised revelation. They were two strangers with mirrored ambitions, yet completely unaware of the impact they were about to make on one another's paths. As the door creaked open, they inhaled deeply, confidence and trepidation swirling around them. Just inside, they exchanged glances, both feeling the pull of the unknown. A moment stretched, simmering with potential. And in that heartbeat, they felt it, the unmistakable shift that could redefine everything they thought they knew about themselves. Little did they know, the choices they made tonight wouldn't just shape their own futures but would intertwine their destinies in ways neither could possibly foresee. Inside the lively atmosphere, Daniel and Emily exchanged glances that forged an unspoken understanding, each sensing the other's readiness to confront something deeper. From the outside, the chaos of laughter and conversation appeared comforting, but inside, both felt the pressure of the unknown weighing against their chests. Daniel stepped further inside, the hum of interactions swirling around him like an invisible current. Community involvement had never been on his radar, it always felt aimless compared to the structured success he was accustomed to. Yet as he watched a mother juggle her children, laughter spilling into the air, an impulse surged within him. His hesitation began transforming into something tangible, a desire to belong, a longing to make a difference that reached beyond the confines of an executive office. He scanned the diverse crowd, ultimately fixed on a small group gathered near a bulletin board. Each face there depicted a story born from challenge and determination, but rather than feeling out of place, Daniel felt captivated. Perhaps this was not merely a mentorship initiative, he could witness resilience firsthand, absorb lessons he didn't know he needed. Meanwhile, Emily's entrance sparked a whirlwind of conflicting emotions. Her heart raced as she saw mothers engaging, sharing ideas effortlessly while she stood at the periphery, burdened with doubt. She felt naked under their confident glances, acutely aware of the inadequacies she carried like glass shards in her pocket. What would they think if she faltered? Yet connected to that fear was a flicker of resolve. Could this evening be the threshold to something new, a way to rewrite her narrative? Shifting her weight from foot to foot, Emily was drawn to a nearby table littered with pamphlets about local resources. As she ran her fingers over the glossy pages, she felt a sudden jolt. These ventures existed to empower. What if she could step beyond the isolation of her financial struggles and find community? What if her very story could inspire others just like her? The thought began reshaping her anxieties into small embers of possibility, igniting a sense of purpose. As the night unfolded, Daniel gravitated toward a man speaking passionately about overcoming adversity. Listening intently, Daniel felt a connection to this man's journey. It resonated with his own ambitions. Could he leverage his position to amplify voices like this one? The idea crystallized near the flames of his growing determination, compelling him to engage. He approached and introduced himself, his prior hesitations dissipating into the atmosphere of support. Emily watched the conversation unfold, a cocktail of admiration and envy swirling in her chest. The man's stories hooked Daniel's attention, and she yearned to find that same courage within herself. "You can do this," she whispered under her breath, almost willing herself to move closer. Just as she envisioned inserting her voice into an unfolding dialogue, she caught Daniel's gaze again. This time, he was staring back with palpable curiosity. Their eyes locked briefly, and in that moment, an electric current surged between them. Daniel's presence was grounding, imbued with a mix of ambition and something softer, a vulnerability that sparked something inside of her. For a fleeting instant, Emily could see herself not just as a participant in the backdrop of the evening, but as an actual contender in crafting her path. The warmth of their mutual recognition ignited a sense of possibility. As they weaved through conversations, they experienced something transformative brewing, an uncharted partnership that could dismantle their respective fears. Just as Daniel prepared to explore this risky new territory with Emily, an unexpected figure emerged from the crowd, a tense face from his business world. The encounter would force Daniel to confront the boundaries he had begun to establish, but first, he had to decide if he'd embrace the invitation for change standing beside him. In that instant, Daniel felt a pull to either retreat to safety or break the mold he had constructed around himself. The moment of truth loomed. What course would he chart next? Daniel stood frozen, a whirlwind of thoughts colliding in his mind as he locked eyes with the approaching figure. The tension coiling around him was suffocating, a palpable reminder of the world he had been meticulously sculpting, a world of power suits and polished presentations. Now here was a man who could unravel it all, a reminder of the aggressive competitiveness that characterized his corporate existence. Daniel. I didn't expect to find you here, the figure called out, a sharp smile not quite meeting his guarded eyes. It was Ryan, a rival from Daniel's previous life as the top strategist at a prestigious firm. Ryan thrived on ambition and cutthroat deals. What are you doing mingling with these folks? In that moment, the implications of Ryan's words gripped Daniel. It was as if Ryan were labeling the gathering with a word that held a palpable sting. The casual dismissal of what was unfolding around them sent a wave of anger bubbling beneath Daniel's surface. Hearing stories, Daniel replied, his voice steadier than he felt. These people have experiences worth listening to. Emily observed their interaction from a distance, her heart quickening once more. She sensed the shift in Daniel, his words struck a chord, revealing a confidence that resonated with her own burgeoning self-worth. Yet the shadow of Ryan loomed large, a reminder of everything she feared: judgment, dismissal, the old narrative of inadequacy. Is that right? Ryan smirked, tilting his head as he scanned the crowd, his expression dripping with disbelief. Hope you're not planning on playing hero here. Sounds a bit beneath your skills. The way he emphasized hero made it clear he believed Daniel's ambitions should be reserved for boardrooms, not community gatherings. Daniel's muscles tightened. He could feel the thin line of tension slicing through the atmosphere, drawing Emily further into her doubts and tightening the constraints on his aspirations. The lure of retreat beckoned him, an old and familiar comfort urging him to step back into the stable, success-driven world he knew so well. But something shifted within him. He couldn't just back down. You'd be surprised how much can be learned from stories of real life, he countered, regret slightly fading as purpose began to swell. It's not always about winning or losing. As the words tumbled from his lips, he felt a sense of clarity dawn, one that surged with a newfound defiance. Emily's breath caught in her throat. Was this the same Daniel she had begun to see as a partner and possibility? The fierceness and conviction in his voice gave her pause. Perhaps she wasn't simply an outsider, they were both grappling with their own landscapes of fear and hope. "Simon, man," Ryan shot back, "this isn't the time to get sentimental. We've got real work to do." Daniel debated his next move. Did he want to stand firm in this thread of inspiration he had begun grasping, or allow Ryan's cynicism to erode his will? The choice loomed heavy. Would he allow the fear of judgment to derail the journey that had only just begun? The energy crackled in the air as Daniel considered the weight of his response. This split was not merely between the two spheres of his life but between integrity and the superficiality he had grappled with as success carved away at his sense of self. Emily, too, felt her heart racing, recognizing that her own confrontation with insecurity was unfolding parallel to Daniel's. The potential for connection with this man flickered in her mind. And as the moment grew thick, both Daniel and Emily sensed that the tides of their lives had begun to shift. This confrontation might serve as a breaking point to challenge old pathways. With each second that passed, they realized they stood on the precipice of something transformative, one exchange that could lead to monumental shifts and revelations. As the stakes rose quietly around them, Daniel narrowed his focus, drawing strength from the pulse of life before him, envisioning the potential he now craved. But just as he prepared to restore clarity and purpose, Ryan sneered, "Looks like you're finally choosing the easy road." Faced with conflict, Daniel felt the flame of anger stoke his resolve. Would he directly confront this past, risking everything for a shot at authenticity, or would he fall prey to the echoes of his former self? The decision lay at his fingertips, trembling with the weight of two futures, the man he had become or the man he longed to be. The moment stretched like taut wire, each second thick with the weight of Daniel's uncertainty. He had built walls to protect himself, but now, those same structures felt like cages. Ryan's words stung, and with every beat of silence, the battle within Daniel escalated. His thoughts raced. Was this tension merely a reflection of his old self, a remnant of the cutthroat corporate persona he was trying to escape? Instinctively, Daniel scanned the crowd for Emily, seeking her encouragement in the sea of faces. Their earlier connection sparked something in him, urging him to push back against Ryan's derision. He could feel the tension in her posture, too. It mirrored his own. They were both caught in this moment, a defining split in their respective narratives. Easy road? Daniel's voice came out sharper than expected, yet it surprised him, awakening a sense of empowerment he had buried deep. Maybe it's south, not about the road I choose but about why I choose it. His chest tightened, the reality of his words sinking deep into his psyche. He took a calculated breath, reveling in the slight shift of the gathering's atmosphere. He could almost hear Emily's heartbeat in rhythm with his rising conviction. Ryan's mocking laughter echoed dully, but Daniel pressed on. "You might think stories are beneath us, Ryan, but maybe you've forgotten how they shape us. They aren't distractions, they're connections." Daniel felt the grounding force of those words. He was crafting his own narrative now, one where power wasn't defined simply by market shares and aggressive strategies, but by empathy, understanding, and growth. He allowed the moment to unfold, focused on the ripples his words might create. The collective tension within the group began to shift, showing signs of intrigue rather than disdain. Daniel's confidence hung in the air, a banner of authenticity that could no longer be hidden or diminished. "Look around," he continued, each word sharpening his resolve. "These stories matter. They have weight. I think it's time we start weighing what success truly means." Emily met his gaze now, her own eyes reflecting a cocktail of admiration and resolve. Daniel realized they were kindred spirits, both seeking something deeper than simplistic accolades. Perhaps they were at the intersection of a new road, one paved not with ambition alone but with a profound understanding of purpose. Ryan's expression contorted as the words took root around the gathered crowd. He shifted from disbelief to irritation, the power dynamic shifting. Daniel felt a flicker of fear for himself, for Emily, for the fleeting success that might slip through his fingers. But that fear was now a fire that fueled his desire to confront authenticity. "What's it going to be, Daniel?" Ryan challenged, his condescending tone seeping in. "You think you can just charm these people with heartwarming anecdotes while skipping real strategy? You'll end up empty-handed." In that charged moment, Daniel's purpose crystallized with startling clarity. This was not merely a choice between two paths, this was a chance to reshuffle the entire game. His dreams were no longer shackled by someone else's idea of success. He was defining his own legacy, one that counted experiences as currency and connections as the real victories. "I'll take my chances with real stories over hollow victories any day," Daniel declared, his voice steady and strong. As those words settled, the attention in the room pivoted completely to him. Uncertainty mixed with palpable respect, rippling through the onlookers, the threads of transformation weaving together their lives. But as victory mingled with determination, a new question burgeoned inside him. He understood that this confrontation was merely the beginning. What would happen next? Would he have the strength to navigate the minefields of corporate machinations and forge new identities both for himself and for Emily? With every heartbeat, Daniel felt the surge of possibility both invigorating and intimidating. As he faced Ryan's narrowed eyes, he sensed that the true challenge lay ahead. The moment extended like a drawn bow, the tension ready to snap when the inevitable confrontation collided with ambition. Daniel inhaled, igniting the flame of passion and purpose, ready for whatever lay beyond this turning point. What he didn't know was how soon his resolve would be tested in the unforgiving arena he'd left behind. As Ryan's presence loomed, Daniel could feel the storm of corporate cynicism swirling back, ready to challenge the very foundations he was trying to build. Would he maintain his fierce new direction, or would he be swept away by the tides of temptation that once governed his life? Daniel stood firm, a wall of conviction rising from the ashes of his earlier uncertainty. The silence, once thick with doubt, began to morph into a charged anticipation. He was not merely defending an idea, he was reclaiming his identity. As Ryan's steely eyes bore into him, Daniel understood that this confrontation wasn't just about their differences in opinion, it was a critical test of his newfound ethos. He could feel Emily's presence like a lighthouse guiding him through the storm. She was watching, each flicker of her expression adding weight to the moment. He knew he had her support, but did it translate into strength? Would it be enough to withstand the tidal wave of Ryan's corporate bravado? Let us be clear, Ryan interjected sharply, his voice rising. Stories might resonate here, but they won't save you in a boardroom. Numbers do that. He leaned in, a predatory glint in his gaze. You value connection, Daniel. But when it comes to the bottom line, do you think those so-called connections will matter at all? The question hung in the air, a gnashing teeth between past and future. Daniel's mind began a mathematical calculation of his worth against Ryan's. A battle between quantitative achievements and qualitative relationships was brewing. What were these stories truly worth in the unforgiving market of business? He replayed his earlier assertions, connections were indeed more than mere transactions. Could he prove it without losing himself in the process? Daniel felt a tightness in his throat, a blend of anxiety and resolve. You keep mentioning the bottom line, Ryan, but isn't it built on relationships too? Clients don't want to feel like numbers, they want to be part of something. That's where real success lies. A ripple of murmurs cascaded through the crowd. In that moment, he understood alliances were brewing amid them. The spectators were shifting, intrigued by his challenge. But was the audience with him or merely a passive observer to this impending clash? Just as he began to feel the swell of support, another thought clawed at him. What if he was wrong? What if strategies and numbers were the only currency that mattered in this ruthless landscape? The struggle within him intensified, wrestling doubt against determination. Ryan smirked, sensing the hesitation. You think feelings matter in this game? You're painting a pretty picture, Daniel, but it's not the reality we deal with. He straightened up, dominating the space with his imposing presence. Look, all I'm saying is, you're walking a fine line. This isn't your emotional playground, it's a business arena, and you'd better learn to play with the heavyweights if you want to survive. With every word, Ryan attempted to reel Daniel back into the murky waters of insecurity. Yet, beneath the surface, Daniel felt his own currents of resolve deepening. The stories he intended to weave had power, the kind that could shift paradigms. He just had to harness that energy effectively. What's survival without purpose? Daniel countered, a new edge in his voice. You talk about thriving, but at what cost? A legacy built on manipulation won't hold up under scrutiny. The words felt like fire spreading through his veins. He was not just spotlighting his values, he was challenging the very fabric of their corporate culture. In that moment, Daniel caught Emily's eye again. Her unwavering gaze served as a reminder that he wasn't alone in this fight. She was a testament to the possibilities one could envision beyond mere numbers. The air thickened, crackling with the promise of transformation. Either he would step into this new world of possibility or be relegated to the sidelines as one more patron of corporate greed. Ambition was his ally now, and if he had any hope of maintaining it, he needed to navigate this challenge with both courage and clarity. Let us see if you can put those numbers aside for a moment, Daniel proposed, his voice sharpening into a challenge. If you truly believe in measuring success only by the numbers, then you've already lost sight of what's vital. He felt the room hold its breath. As Daniel's confidence surged, he knew that it was no longer just a battle with Ryan but a crusade against the cynical coldness that plagued the industry. The true test would come when he faced his own fears, the lingering shadow of his former self. What if he faltered? What if his authenticity failed to resonate when confronted with the corporate juggernaut he had long feared? Resolute yet apprehensive, Daniel prepared for whatever lay across the divide. Behind every number there were stories waiting to be told. With one final breath, he posed the question that would change everything. Are you willing to reevaluate what you believe success truly is? As the question echoed into the silence, anticipation wove thickly in the air, and Daniel braced himself for the storm that would inevitably follow. Daniel's heart pounded in his chest, the weight of his declaration echoing in the space that moments ago had been charged with tension. As he scanned the crowd, he noticed a shift in the atmosphere, subtle yet palpable. Faces once caught in the rhythm of skepticism now showed signs of contemplation. The battle lines had been drawn, but the terrain was beginning to shift beneath him, a critical fracture under Ryan's unwavering facade. What had begun as a defensive act of reclaiming his identity was evolving into something deeper. Daniel felt the stirrings of a burgeoning belief in his vision, one that extended beyond personal vindication. He could feel the flicker of potential energy in the air. Perhaps it didn't just lie dormant within him, after all. Maybe it was contagious, waiting for the right moment to ignite in others. But impending dread tugged at him. His stomach knotted with uncertainty as he replayed Ryan's words echoing in his mind. What if this challenge spiraled into a confrontation he wasn't prepared to navigate? The fierce backlash of a corporate world that valued cold calculations over human connections loomed large in his thoughts, taunting him with visions of failure. Could he genuinely believe that what he had to offer would withstand the relentless scrutiny of a competitive environment? As Ryan opened his mouth to respond, Daniel's resolve hardened. This was his chance to solidify his footing, to make a compelling case for his approach that transcended the superficial metrics of success. He gathered his thoughts, grounding himself in the confidence stemming from knowing that authentic connection could cultivate loyalty and sustain relationships in a fluid market. Success isn't just about the numbers. It's the daily interactions that build trust, the stories that create an emotional resonance, he declared, determination threading through his voice like an unyielding line. You can't quantify loyalty. It's nurtured through sincerity, not transactions. That's what we need to focus on moving forward. An uncomfortable silence met his declaration, but this time it felt charged with possibility rather than hostility. Daniel took a breath, steeling himself for Ryan's next onslaught. The moment felt pivotal, not just for him but for everyone in the room, as though they were on the precipice of a critical realization. Ryan leaned back, crossing his arms, the corners of his mouth curling into a calculating smile. And when clients walk away once your stories grow stale? You'll be left with nothing, he snapped, attempting to regain the upper hand. But Daniel recognized this tactic, a classic move to instigate doubt. Instead of retreating, he shifted his approach, ready to confront Ryan's skepticism head-on. I won't deny that clients might seek fresh narratives, he countered, but they'll remember how my approach made them feel, which stands far longer than fleeting numbers. We need to start reconditioning our approach, changing the conversation from being purely transactional to one that incorporates empathy and understanding. As the audience absorbed his words, he could sense the room leaning closer, attention riveted. Was the tide turning in his favor? No longer a passive observer in the shadows, Daniel immersed himself in the dialogue, reminding himself of his purpose beyond this boardroom debate. The unease that had once held him captive began to dissipate, revealing a glimmer of excitement. Momentum began to build. With each word, he felt he was not just advocating for his ideas but igniting a possibility that resonated deeply with his audience. But lurking beneath that exhilaration was a question he hadn't grasped fully until now. How far was he willing to push this narrative? Was he prepared to battle the entrenched indifference of the corporate establishment, to pit his vision against a system designed to value profit above all? The stakes were clear, but so was his purpose. I'm willing to fight for this vision, Daniel declared, voice unwavering. To shift what it means to be successful in our industry. The room held its collective breath again. In that moment, Daniel realized he was not merely advocating for an alternative approach, he was becoming the embodiment of a new possibility. But as he stood on this precipice, that uncomfortable question of sacrifice crept back into his consciousness. Was flame worth igniting if it meant risking everything he had fought for? As the thoughts spiraled, he felt momentum stuttering just a beat beneath the surface. The challenge wasn't just with Ryan anymore, it was within himself. Where would this journey take him next? Daniel could still feel the tension crackling in the room as Ryan's skepticism hung heavily in the air. He was acutely aware that this was not a simple debate, it was a battleground where his beliefs clashed with long-held corporate dogma. The momentum he had found was thrilling yet frightening, a double-edged sword. The emotions surfacing in him, passion, fear, determination, created a cocktail of adrenaline that heightened his senses. He took a moment to breathe, scanning the faces around him. Some showed signs of alignment, a flicker of interest igniting in their eyes. Others, however, remained rigid in their skepticism, their expressions hardened by years of conditioning to reject anything that strayed from pure financial gain. They were the gatekeepers of a legacy he longed to challenge, betraying a world too focused on transactions instead of relationships. "Let us not forget," Ryan interjected, his tone clipped, "the market doesn't wait for ideologies. For every moment you spend reminiscing on connections, a competitor is actively courting the clients we need. Is that the kind of company we want to be?" Daniel countered, courage threading through the doubt. "Sure, we can chase numbers, but if we crush creativity and humanity in our pursuit, what legacy will we leave? What will differentiate us in the long run?" His words echoed in the confines of the boardroom, surprising even himself. He wasn't merely voicing a counter-argument, he was carving out a path, a manifesto that resonated with an ideal. The vehemence in his voice revealed a deep-seated fear of mediocrity, of being just another cog in a profit-driven machine. It was this fear that had propelled him forward, into the depths of a concept he hoped would breathe life back into the organization. Ryan leaned forward, narrowing his eyes. "So what's the plan, Daniel? How do we turn this charm offensive into tangible results? How do you measure connection?" There it was again, the challenge, the foothold of doubt. Daniel felt the pull to retreat, to hide behind vague philosophy rather than expose his vulnerability through specific strategies. But something new emerged in him, a resolve burgeoned through his foundational belief in the transformative power of connection. "Let us start with a program that encourages genuine interaction," he suggested, gaining momentum. "Regular engagement exercises with both clients and employees, storytelling workshops, and an open forum for sharing successes and failures. We need to weave human experience into our narrative. If we invoke real emotions, we translate them into loyalty." For a fleeting moment, uncertainty enveloped him. Had he stepped too far into the incremental strategy space? But there was no turning back now. Daniel stood tall, believing that every great leap began with a single step, no matter how precarious. He was not just selling an idea, he was becoming the catalyst for change. Connection can't merely be quantified in numbers, but we can gauge its success in retention rates, client satisfaction, and ultimately, employee morale, he explained, the words flowing more freely, his passion fueling clarity. Daniel watched as some faces began to soften, while others still exhibited a resistance that reminded him of the uphill battle he had chosen. He had never been one to shy away from confrontation, but this was about more than a debate, it was personal. The stakes had shifted from mere professional rivalry to something deeper. Every word exchanged felt like a piece of his ambition manifesting in confrontation, and he realized the fight was as much about his emerging identity as a leader. This was not only a struggle against Ryan but against the fear rooted in his own past of being dismissed. As he gathered the final threads of his argument, Daniel recognized a grave truth. To win this battle, he'd need to rally allies. He could no longer fight alone. "Every one of us plays a part in this, and if we pull together, we can redefine success," he declared passionately, feeling the fervor radiate. "Let us not only chase clients, let us captivate them with compelling narratives." But even as enthusiasm rose within him, a quiet voice whispered its doubts. Was he prepared for the resistance that might come from those unwilling to change? Would the board ultimately support his vision or side with the familiar current of complacency? The air thickened as silence ensued again, pregnant with tension and possibility, just before a new voice broke through the collective stillness. Daniel, what if we move beyond your current approach? What if we pivot this entirely? In that moment, the ground beneath Daniel felt both solid and treacherous. A single shift in emphasis could reshape everything. What did this pivot entail? The confrontation loomed, with implications that stretched beyond mere strategy. Would he be able to adapt without losing the essence of what he fought for? What new paths awaited him just around the corner? All he could do now was brace himself for what was to come. Daniel's heart raced as he registered the weight of the question, feeling the intensity in the room sharpen. He turned his focus to the speaker, a junior executive named Lisa, whose thoughtful expression challenged his resolve. What adjustments could they possibly discuss? He could feel the stakes rising. Was he on the verge of a breakthrough or a complete derailment? Pivot? Daniel asked, his voice betraying a mixture of curiosity and concern. What do you have in mind? Lisa's eyes flickered with determination. What if we focus not just on connection but on metrics that actually matter to our growth? Partnerships that generate immediate ROI, for instance. What if we explored those? A part of him bristled at the suggestion, instinctively recoiling from a more transactional approach. Yet, beneath the tension, he sensed an opportunity, one that could potentially bridge his ideals with their practical realities. He needed to find a way to make that connection tangible, to prove that emotional resonance could indeed contribute to the bottom line. I appreciate your perspective, Lisa, he began, choosing his words carefully. Measuring success is important, but if we induct new clients solely based on immediate returns, we risk losing our long-term vision. We should craft a narrative that attracts clients who share our values, not just another business opportunity. Silent deliberation enveloped the room again, but this time, uncertainty felt less crippling. Daniel could feel the gears in some minds shifting, those who might be on the brink of understanding the fusion of creativity with strategic necessity. He was acutely aware that this was an experiment. It required vulnerability and trust. Let us think about what that means practically, Daniel continued, invigorated by the moment. If we engage our clients on a personal level, showcasing sustainability stories or community involvement, we can cultivate loyalty that rivals any quick hit. Consider this: what if we leverage our values into case studies that display our long-term impact? We can win their hearts and their business. He felt the room grow warmer, a shifting tide that signaled movement rather than stagnation. Even Ryan was momentarily silent, his skepticism perhaps tempered by the depth of Daniel's conviction. What you're suggesting sounds like a risk, Ryan finally noted, leaning back. His tone was guarded, as if testing the waters of Daniel's intuition. But risk can be a good thing, provided there's a solid plan in place. If we commit to this, what safeguards can we implement? The grunt of approval from other executives imbued Daniel with unanticipated confidence. This was exactly the push he needed. We need to prioritize feedback loops both from our clients and our employees. If something isn't working, we'll know it quickly and can take corrective measures. A trial and error approach, but within a structure that adheres to our core principles. A subtle ripple of excitement spread through the room. Daniel sensed he was cultivating alliances, drawing on the collective intelligence around him. But he was also aware this was just the beginning and that many obstacles lay ahead, especially with entrenched minds that had not yet yielded. What if they agreed with him yet refused to act on it? What if this thrilling communal energy fizzled into a mere boardroom fantasy? As the discussions began to shift and ideas surfaced, Daniel realized that he stood at another crossroads. The emotional and financial aspects of the campaign loomed like twin towers ever present, yet they seemed to waver with each passing moment. In his core, he questioned whether he had the capacity to guide the ship through these turbulent waters, weighing the very fabric of his identity against the demands of corporate expectations. Suddenly, a thought struck him. Sometimes, clarity comes when one least expects it. Perhaps embracing this duality, guiding both numbers and narratives, was the way forward. But how to present this subtly interwoven vision to a resistant board? The quiet air stirred again, igniting a sense of urgency within him. The next conversation needed to be pivotal. He had to create a narrative that embraced both concept and metric without sacrificing either. As he prepared for the discussion ahead, an unsettling thought surfaced. Could embracing revenue-focused strategies ultimately dilute the values he sought to preserve? The tension coiled within him, leaving a lingering question. Would he be the catalyst for transformation or inadvertently engineering his own downfall? As the meeting progressed, Daniel couldn't shake the fire ignited within him. Each passing moment felt pivotal, a turning point that could veer the company into a future defined by empathy rather than cutthroat ambition. He glanced around the room, meeting the eyes of his colleagues, many of whom still bore the skepticism manifested by years of corporate monotony. But in that moment, he committed to leading, to guiding them beyond mere profit margins and into a realm where success coexisted with purpose. "Let's talk strategy," Daniel began, a new vibrancy threading through his voice, where numbers and narratives meet. He laid out a concise framework, tangible metrics to track the success of their community-oriented initiatives alongside their traditional performance indicators. This approach wouldn't just resonate with potential clients, it would breathe life into the company culture, integrating stories of perseverance that reflected the very core of their new identity. As he spoke, he noticed heads nodding, the resistance beginning to dissolve beneath the clarity of his vision. Stories no longer appeared as mere embellishments but as pivotal components of a robust business model. Each individual, from junior executives to senior strategists, started to engage with his proposition. Daniel could feel the room orbiting around a shared understanding. They were on the verge of a cultural renaissance. Yet, as confidence surged, the weight of responsibility settled heavily upon his shoulders. He recognized that the corporate landscape was ripe for transformation but fraught with risk. Those old habits wouldn't dissolve overnight. Would the team truly embrace this evolution, or would the flicker of resistance ignite again when pressures mounted? "Real change takes courage," Daniel continued, his gaze steady as he searched for affirmation among his peers. "It calls us to not only prioritize our targets but to redefine them. Our success won't be confined to numerical growth, it will flourish in the loyalty we cultivate through genuine connection. Imagine the impact we'd have if our clients felt seen, valued, if we could narrate their journeys back to them." Each word carved a new trajectory, drawing them closer to something authentic, something that respected the emotional landscape behind business interactions. He felt the momentum mount as murmurs of agreement floated through the room, energy surged where inertia had existed previously. And amidst it, an unmistakable realization bloomed in him. This was why he entered the world of mentorship, why he had ventured beyond the confines of spreadsheets and boardrooms. He wanted to embody the voice of compassion and ignite a new kind of ambition, one that revitalized not just their bottom line, but their essence. Yet, just as excitement built, uncertainty resurfaced like a tidal wave. What if his peers saw him as a naive romantic? The harsh realities of the corporate world had often squashed such dreams beneath the weight of financial demands. Would they support him now only to pull back when faced with challenges? Then, unexpectedly, Ryan spoke again, this time not with his usual sarcasm but with a contemplative tone. "You're suggesting we step into uncharted waters. It's risky, especially considering our current market standing. So how do we sell this to the board?" His question opened a door Daniel hadn't anticipated but recognized as crucial. Selling the vision, a realistic approach to their ideas, required solidified backing. "We gather data," he replied swiftly, enthusiasm underscoring each word. "We'll pilot a community engagement project, measure our impact through retention rates and client satisfaction scores as a direct indicator of our successes," he proposed, grounding ambition in achievable metrics again. "What about the operational costs?" A voice chimed from the corner. The doubts, though less frequent now, still lingered, but Daniel met the voice with determination. "An upfront investment can seem daunting, but we'll show operational efficiencies as engagement builds," he persisted. Creating a narrative of intertwined costs versus benefits that promised financial sustainability alongside moral obligation. People are eager to engage with brands that resonate with their beliefs. If we can demonstrate our commitment to community and client stories, we solidify our place in the market. By changing the narrative, we reshape our brand into something vastly appealing. A spark lit in countless eyes, signaling a collective understanding. This wasn't merely a strategic play, it was a turning point, an authentic mission creeping into their corporate identity. It marked the beginning of a collaborative legacy, one he never expected to forge but craved to uphold. As discussions began to swirl into strategies and timelines, Daniel's confidence crescendoed. This was more than a meeting, it was the manifestation of his dreams, compassionate leadership, genuine connection, and the opportunity to redefine success. His vision felt tangible now. He was not just an entrepreneur but a leader molded in the fires of vulnerability and ambition. In those heated moments, as ideas bounced around the room and engagement grew, Daniel realized he had crossed a significant threshold. He was not merely reacting to the demands of his past life, he was being molded by the challenges he faced. And as he witnessed the seeds of change take root, he felt his previous trepidations give way to an invigorating certainty. They were on a shared journey toward redefining not only their company's future but their own passions and relationships. As the meeting drew to a close and tangible strategies emerged, Daniel looked into Emily's eyes, who had been silently supporting him throughout. They shared a silent acknowledgement that they were no longer isolated individuals caught in their struggles, they were architects of a collective transformation. The moment crystallized into something priceless, an unprecedented blend of purpose and ambition coursing through him. This was not merely about mentorship or obligation, it was about legacy, propelling others forward through shared stories. And in that understanding, he felt complete. Daniel left the office that night with a solid confidence he never thought he would achieve, a recognition of his competence, confirmed by both himself and those around him. He had successfully navigated the intricate dance between measured risk and authentic connection, earning accolades for bringing courage into a landscape hungry for empathy. As he stepped into the moonlight, he envisioned a future where every narrative resonated with integrity, where all would thrive not just as numbers on a spreadsheet but as reasons that inspired his journey forward. And in embracing this new opportunity, he knew he had accomplished something profound. He had conquered self-doubt and emerged not just as a millionaire, but as a leader with a purpose, ready to engineer a transformative legacy. This was the moment. The tipping point of transformation was real, and he felt it intertwining with every fiber of his being. Now, a voice echoed in his mind, a candid reminder urging him forward. What will you say to the world? Those questions were no longer daunting, they were invitations. Success is within reach, he whispered to himself, propelled toward a tomorrow that stood brilliantly illuminated. Success redefined, a chance to inspire thousands, echoing throughout his story. The world was watching, and it was time to show the difference they could make together. Subscribe immediately to the channel to not miss the next exclusive emotional stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm. Comment your reactions and theories about the ending. Share instantly this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this conclusion. This is the moment to show your support. Don't wait even one more second to share. Only true fans of personal overcoming stories understand the importance of supporting the channel through these actions.